Today, this is the second session of the second chapter of English, Karma, written by Khushwant Singh. So girls, in the first session of this chapter, we have seen that the two main characters have already entered. Sir Mohanlal is waiting in the first class waiting room with his obvious and habitual personality trait. Moreover, he is seen talking to the mirror there in a demeaning tone. He seems to be always looking down upon everything and everyone Indian, though he himself is an Indian. That is the most ironical part of this story. He imitates everything British, starting from his tonality of speaking English, wearing suit and tie, to applying cologne. In contrast to this, Mrs. Lady Lal, Lakshmi, is very much Indian, possessing everything in the simplest of manner. So, from this part, we can frame a few questions like, the mirror smiled back at Sir Mohan. This is a sentence from the chapter. Why did the mirror smile back at him? Question number 2 can be, according to the mirror, Sir Mohanlal was a bit of all right. Why? Number 3, how did Lakshmi apparently look like? Number 4, right at the end of the platform, this is an extract from the story. Who is the speaker here? Who is the speaker speaking to? What is the subject matter of the given sentence? And number 5, are you traveling all alone, sister? This is also an extract from the story. What idea do you form about the person spoken to? So this was about the first part of the story. Now let us carry on with the story. So the last part of the portion that we dealt with was, are you traveling alone, sister? This was where we had stopped. Okay, now let us move on. No, I am with my master, brother. So this is, in my opinion, is a very strong comment, a very strong assertion from a wife. She is addressing her husband as a master. So you can well understand the relationship between the husband and the wife. He is in the waiting room. He travels first class. He is a vizier and a barrister and meets so many officers and Englishmen in the trains, and I am only a native woman. I can't understand English and don't know their ways, so I keep to my Janana interclass. So in this whole paragraph, you can well understand, girls, the mentality of this woman. She is typically and traditionally an Indian woman. She is very much simple and she wants to keep her life very simple also. But she has a very strange relationship with her husband, just like a relationship between a master and a servant. She only does the household activities. All the instructions given by Sir Mohan were and are carried out by this ordinary woman. And she thinks that she is just a native woman. She is just an Indian, just a woman who is there with her husband to carry out his orders. And he is a vizier and a barrister. So now, who is a vizier? A vizier is a high-ranking political advisor or minister in the Muslim world. But in the modern usage, the term has been used for government ministers. And a barrister is a person entitled to practice as an advocate, particularly in the higher courts. So from these two terms, you can well understand the social status of Sir Mohan. So he really belonged to the elite class of the society. And in contrast to his status, Mrs. Mohanlal or Lakshmi was not at all suitable to be his wife, according to her. So she says that he belongs to an upper class of the society, and so he is in the first class waiting room waiting for the train to steam in, and she is waiting outside. So she wants to move on alone, and she wants to take a seat in the ladies' compartment only and not to accompany her husband. Lakshmi chatted away merrily. Now Lakshmi was very simple. She was very down to earth, and she was just walking and talking to the, this coolie, and she was very happy in that. She was fond of a little gossip and had no one to talk to at home. So now in this paragraph, we will see her position in her own home. How she manages to be in her own home. Let us find out. Her husband never had any time to spare for her. So this is really very strange. And I hope that this should not have been the case between this couple. But as Sir Mohanlal is typically an anglicized, British, rather to say, he never took care of his own wife. He did not pay any attention to her ever. Even he did not have any time for her also. She lived in the upper story of the house and he on the ground floor. So their house supposedly had 2 floors, and we see that these 2 people live in the separate stories of their house. He did not like her poor illiterate relatives hanging around his bungalow, so they never came. So in this sentence also we find the very harsh and aggressiveness of Mr. Lal. He doesn't like his own wife's relatives, so they never came. This is very strange. He came up to her once in a while at night and stayed for a few minutes. Now see, in the whole day or 24 hours, only for a few minutes, he came to the upper story of the house and went off again. He just ordered her about in anglicized Hindustani, and she obeyed passively. Now what is this word anglicized? This word bears a significance in this chapter. Anglicize means to make English in form, idiom, style or character. Okay, so whatever he spoke in Hindustani, it was all in the style of the British people speaking in English. So he tried to, twist and turn the words used in Hindi. And in that manner, he used to speak to his own wife also in his own home. This is very funny. This is very, very strange indeed. And she obeyed passively. Passively, this word is also very important in this situation. Passively means in an accepting manner without active response or resistance. These nocturnal visits had, however, borne no fruit. So, from this, we well understand that this couple did not have any children. So, nocturnal means any activity done at night. So, this was her condition in her own home. Now, let us get back to the platform situation. The signal came down and the clanging of the bell announced the approaching train. Now, it was in the olden days, so there was no announcement in the automatic voice, and the signal was down and the bell clanged and the train steamed into the platform. Lady Lal hurriedly finished off her meal. So she was having a meal, her lunch, and she hurriedly finished off her meal. She got up, still licking the stone of the pickled mango. So in this sentence, once again, we see that Mrs. Lal was typically an ordinary Indian woman, very much used to or habituated to her practices which she used to do at home also. She was licking the stone of the pickled mango. We also do this, right, girls? So this is a very ordinary practice, and she did not have a tendency to show off. She emitted a long, loud belch, and she went to the public tap to rinse her mouth and wash her hands. Now, what is this belch? A new word for you, I hope. Belch means to emit wind noisily from the stomach through the mouth. This is done when your stomach is just full, okay? And now she has finished off her meal and she wants to rinse her mouth and wash her hands. So she went to the public tap. So every activity of Lakshmi is seen to be very ordinary and very simple. Okay, that is common to everyone in India. After washing, she dried her mouth and hands with the loose end of her sari. This is once again a very common trait of the Indian woman, washing their face or washing the mouth and hands of their children also. They do it with the end of her sari, of their sari, and walked back to her steel trunk, belching and thanking the gods for the favor of a filling meal. So she was very much thankful to the god. So she just belched and thanked them. The train steamed in. Lakshmi found herself facing an almost empty interclass Janana compartment next to the guard's van at the tail end of the train. So we see that the interclass Janana compartment, that means the ladies compartment, was just at the tail end of the train next to the guard's van. And Lakshmi was very excited to see the almost empty compartment. The rest of the train was packed. So as was said by the coolie previously, or the bearer previously, in the last part we have seen that he had told Lakshmi that the train would be crowded, but the ladies' compartment would not be crowded. She heaved her squat, bulky frame through the door and found a seat by the window. Now, heaved her squat, bulky frame means she was overweight, she was bulky, she was short and fat, so she had to lift her body through the door in a difficult manner, and she managed to get a seat by the window. She produced a 2 anna bit from a knot in her sari and dismissed the coolie. In this sentence, once again, we find an example of a very common habit of an Indian woman, keeping the coins or the notes in the knot of their sari. So she also did that. She then opened her beetle case and made herself 2 beetle leaves charged with a red and white paste. minced betel nuts and cardamoms. So this is how women, not always women, men also have betel leaves with a white paste and red paste minced with pieces of betel nuts and sometimes with cardamoms. These she thrust into her mouth till her cheeks bulged on both sides. So she just packed her mouth with betel leaves, 2 betel leaves. Then she rested her chin on her hands and sat gazing idly at the jostling crowd on the platform. So now her activities were over, according to her. She had her lunch, she washed her hands and mouth, and she gave the coolie his, fare, and now she has managed to get a seat by the window side, and she had 2 betel leaves in her mouth now, and now she was just in a mood to look at the people going up and down on the platform. And it was a jostling crowd, means the crowd was pressing harder. The arrival of the train did not disturb Sir Mohan Lal's sang-froid. Now, on the contrary, we see Sir Mohan Lal was not at all worried about the arrival of the train. Though he had to get onto the train, but he was not at all excited. If he was so, he did not show his excitement. So here a new word is seen, sang-froid. What is this sang-froid? What does it mean? Sang-froid means, the ability to keep calm in difficult times. So as I told you, that yes, Sir Mohan Lal was about to get onto the train, but he was very much calm and he was not showing his excitement. He continued to sip his scotch and ordered the bearer to tell him when he had moved the luggage to a first-class compartment. Now he was still in the first-class waiting room, just sipping his peg of whiskey, and he just instructed the bearer to just inform him whenever he had put his luggage into a first-class compartment. Excitement, bustle, and hurry were exhibitions of bad breeding, and Sir Mohan was eminently well bred. So according to him, we find that excitement, bustle and hurry were exhibitions of bad breeding. That means, according to him, every Indian is like that. Every Indian shows excitement and makes a hurry to everything, and all these are the bad characteristics of people, and that was typically Indian according to Sir Mohan. Though he is an Indian too, but he thinks that he is completely different from all the Indian people who are like this, who do have these personality traits like making excitement or, showing hustle and hurry. And he thinks himself very well bred. That means he thought himself that he was very much, taken care of like the British people after his birth. He wanted everything tickety-boo and orderly. Tickety-boo is a word that tells us the old-fashioned British way of expressing perfection. So as we had seen in the first part of the story, that the mirror addresses and compliments Sir Mohan as a man of perfection. So in this situation also we find that he likes and wants everything tickety-boo and orderly. That means everything he wants to be to the ultimate perfection. In his 5 years abroad, Sir Mohan had acquired the manners and attitudes of the upper classes. So as we have seen from the very beginning of the story, that Sir Mohan is always articulates and imitates the British style of everything, their mannerisms, their living style, speaking English, everything. So when he had lived for 5 years, he imitated everything of the upper class of the society. He rarely spoke Hindustani, rarely, though he was an Indian. When he did it, it was like an Englishman's only, the very necessary words and properly anglicized. So again we see that he likes to be a British, though he is not. And he imitates everything, every bit of the English people. And he almost never says Hindustani. Whenever he says it, he makes it anglicized. But he fancied his English, finished and refined at no less a place than the University of Oxford. So he also spoke English in a very finished and refined manner. And many a times it was just an accent of the University of Oxford. He was fond of conversation, and like a cultured Englishman, he could talk on almost any subject, books, politics, people. How frequently had he heard English people say that he spoke like an Englishman? See, there is a mark of exclamation over here. So, mark of exclamation of surprise and astonishment, and also of irony, because he only thinks himself to be like British people. But has any British person told him that he was British? No, we have not heard of it. So he was just a person, just an Indian who was trying to imitate the British people, but he was not in birth British. So in the later part of the story, we will see how things will change for Sir Mohanlal.